Pete, I now task you with making me interested in the Calgary Flames. And I don't mean to do that as like an immediate shot at the Flames, but this is one of the teams that will be more challenged to have a strong, exciting season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my primary note on the Calgary Flames here is this might be the most, quote, what is going on here team in the league. Like, what is the direction of this team and what's the plan? Because they've lost so much over the past few years, and like they have some young guys, but not enough to be like, okay, just wait a few years and they'll be okay.
They also seem like they're at a point where the best they can do is, and I don't want to use these previews to shit on anybody, even if we kind of did ignore a team in the Central preview, but
we didn't shit on them.
That's right. We don't shit on teams. They just kind of shuffle deck chairs, like Andrew Mangiapane out so they can sign Anthony Mantha, and it's like, sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that changes your team really.
So what I'll say about this team, at least like the forward lineup, their forward lineup is basically exclusively comprised of like middle six players, which is not a recipe for success most of the time. Like, you have to have your tiers of talent.
What about Jonathan Huberdeau? Third year with the team. It has gone extremely poorly, and the salt on the wound is that a trade that looked maybe a little imbalanced in the favor of the Flames has proven to be one of the most multiple franchise changing trades we've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that maybe he turns a corner. I don't think you've seen it. Like, you haven't seen enough evidence. He has just looked like a complete shell of himself. And again, like, I would love for him to figure it out, because I think that guy's been having a hell of a time over the past few years, not only based off his own performance, but also having to watch Florida go on to win the Stanley Cup last year. The quotes that came out after they won were pretty depressing from his end, where it's like, yeah, of course, this fucking blows. So I'm rooting for him. I don't know if I've seen enough to believe in it.
He's entering the second year of an 8-year deal with a $10.5 million cap hit. And last season, he had 12 goals and 40 assists for 52 points in 81 games, which is his lowest point total since he was injured in the 2016 and 2017 season. Really rough stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he is, not trying to be dramatic, like, he is kind of cratered there, and the vibes haven't looked amazing. As you mentioned, the quotes after seeing Florida win, it's a bummer there. And I root for Jonathan Huberdeau because I don't want anything to truly suck, unless it sucks in a funny and endearing way.
Yeah.
And this has been an absolute bummer for both him, the Calgary Flames. Haven't even mentioned what their fans have been through. Because while the roster looks nothing like what it did when Johnny Gaudreau was last there in 2021-22, I want to say only few of the players from that team remain. All those fans have been through all this shit. And I'm sure it's still going to be hard for all the players to go to the building knowing that an icon in their franchise was lost this summer. But their fans are having a fucking bad enough time. I would love for something to go unexpectedly right for them this year.
Hey, thanks for watching the channel.
We appreciate everybody who checks out our stuff, but 80% of our viewers are not actually subscribed to this page, so if you could smash that subscribe button, it would go a very long way for us.
The more subscriptions we have, the more visibility we get from YouTube, which allows us to do more.
So press that button. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there are some like pillars of maybe some brightness where, like, I really like Connor Zary and what I saw from him last year. I think that he can be a really good player for them for a while. Rasmus Andersson is one of my favorite defensemen, like most underrated defensemen in the league. But like outside of that, like, you don't have a lot that's exciting or great.
Well, have not mentioned yet, I'm surprised it took this long, Dustin Wolf, who...
Oh, yeah.
This is a very Calder candidate heavy division, which is amazing. Whether it's guys on the Ducks, certainly guys on the Sharks, and 7th best odds to win the Calder. Dustin Wolf, really good AHL player who's kind of earned his bones there. I'm
not putting my money on a goaltender playing behind a pretty bad defense.
I think, and I've made this joke now already about Michkov if he helps the Flyers score a single power play goal this season, but if Dustin Wolf does something to make you think he deserves Calder this year, then he deserves the heart. Then he deserves the heart, because it means that this team didn't allow a ton of goals. And they didn't allow a ton of goals last year, but they had Jacob Markstrom. They are taking a big step backwards there. I do think the pairing or the tandem of Dustin Wolf and old friend Dan Vladar, who's still there, is a lot of fun.
I do want to point out, they didn't give up a ton of goals last year, but they did start the season with Zadorov and Hanifin, and they had guys.
The exodus that team has experienced is really something.
Yeah. Just especially defensively, those two guys, and then you have Elias Lindholm, who's one of the better defensive forwards in the league.
Right.
That exodus there has been pretty crazy, and I do. And even when those guys were there, it seemed like they didn't want to be there. The vibes around that team over the past few years, I mean, I guess even going back to Tkachuk, Gaudreau, guys have just wanted out of there for a while now, and they gotta figure that out. They have to have people want to be there. Maybe it starts with their facilities, because I remember when they made the Huberdeau and Uyghur trade, they had the video of Uyghur showing up to the locker room, and you're like, this is your locker room?
Do you remember that, Sean? Mm-hmm. It was
like a high school locker room.
That was a day on hockey Twitter, formerly known as X. That was a real day of people being like, oh my God, this excitement that we're having about the Flames basically getting half of the Panthers roster is actually making us feel really weird about the Flames. So they finished 5th in the Pacific last year, which is really kind of wild, and you can't do that without having the Sharks and the Ducks in your division, two teams that really ended up having very rough goes of it. I think it's almost impressive that they finished 5th with what they've been going through the last couple of years. Is there a way in which you could see by season's end the arrow pointing up for the Flames? Because my fear for them is that it really is one of those, whatever the emoji is, where the arrow's just pointing both ways, and they're just going to be in purgatory for a while.
Well, I mean, I
or maybe they could suck, and that at least
that's what I was going to say. I think bottoming out would be the arrow pointing up, because at least you've got a clearer sense of direction, and if it bottoms out, it forces you to realize that whatever you're doing is not working, and you got to blow it up, you got to retool, and you have the capital to maybe start moving towards that in terms of draft and things like that. And speaking of moving towards it, the thing that I just mentioned, they did unveil arena plans this summer, and it literally says on this NHL.com headline, Flames unveil arena plans, expect new home to help attract talent.
I was going to say, I just typed in Calgary Flames locker room. It very much looks like an AHL locker room. And then also when you do that, for some reason, multiple pictures of the Oilers locker room pop up next to it. And brother,
the Oilers locker room is unbelievable.
The difference is truly unbelievable.
Yeah. So.
Well, I was going to say we sort of ended on a positive note for the Flames. They're building something.
Yeah.
Even if it means
it's just a building.
They are making a building.
We all silly like the mayor.